We have started. I don't see any attendees as of right now.
Okay, we will begin the meeting. I'm calling to order the June 18th meeting of the ECI committee. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. And we will begin with the two items that we had this evening. The first of them being the RFP for the SAP and psychological services. Dr. Waters, who will be up for that?
All right. Good evening, everyone. And first, I would like to just say happy birthday publicly to you, Dr. G. We hope you have a really good day or a night when we hang up from ECI. So first up tonight, we have Dr. Brocksterman here with us, and he is going to give some information in regards to SAP counseling and psychological services. So Dr. Brocksterman.
Thank you, Dr. Waters. Thank you, Dr. G and Mr. McBain, for your time. This evening, we're bringing forward a request for proposal for SAP and psychological services. We conducted a request for proposal based on, we had just come off a 2-year private agreement with Marikey as a provider. The district privately contracts with Marikey to provide SAP and psychological services. We have done that for 4 full-time positions. Transitioning into this next school year, Marikey will continue to provide our county-based services, but working through our request for proposal process, the winning contractor or bidder was the Lincoln Center for Youth and Families. They will be in the upcoming school year, and the next year after that, it's a 2-year request for proposal, and they will be providing our counselors at a rate of $76,000 per counselor. We fund that primarily through a grant component from the PCCD grant, as well as some funds out of the student services budget. In moving into this next year, given the rate at which we were able to acquire those services, we are looking right now to anticipate bringing on 5 full-time SAP and psychological service counselors, an increase from our 1 from the previous year. So we're excited to partner with a new provider and continue to work with Marikey with their county-funded services that the county does continue to fund. So we're bringing that forward to the board with looking for full board approval moving forward. That is all.
I just have one question. What you saw as the strengths for this new provider that we would be working with?
So I think the strengths for the new provider is their experience. So they have a diverse background and experience in providing school-based counseling services, similar to some of the services that we contract with our Lakeside counselor. They provide that in other school settings. And based on their resume and their experience in this area, we had ongoing concerns with Marikey and their ability to fill vacancies and fill positions on a consistent basis. We have a little more confidence that this provider is going to be able to achieve that goal. So that is one of the main strengths. And as I said, their experience.
I am glad to hear that we're starting with a 2-year contract so that we can be sure that, that they're able to fulfill what they've said they can do. So any questions, Mr. McBain?
No, sounds good. I appreciate our extra steps to make sure that these services are available to our students. I think it's a great move. Thanks very much, Dr. Brocksterman.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Brocksterman. Can I have a motion to move this to action?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We will move RFP for SAP and psychological services to action. And now up the RFP for translation services.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Rachel Early and I are delighted to have an opportunity to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the request for proposal process that we've gone through this year for translation services. At this moment, I only see the agenda, but I do not see the slide deck. There we are. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mrs. Early. All right, great. I'm delighted to be presenting, as I said a moment ago, with Mrs. Early. We're going to kind of tag team the presentation, although she really took the lead in this process, which I've been so appreciative of over the past probably 6 months or so. So just a quick update. So we probably have had TransPerfect as our translation services for about 9 years. It was definitely time for us to kind of to go back and look at the services and be able to kind of go through the RFP process just to be able to see if there were other vendors who'd be able to better meet our needs. And so we had 3 sort of opportunities going through this process. The first was to really examine our current practices and processes, to reflect on our needs and the ways in which translation services and interpretation needs have really evolved probably the past 5 or 6 years, and then also explore ways of translation services themselves have evolved with tech tools such as AI. So we'll go right to the next slide. So you can see here that as a school district, we advertise for proposals and we really focus on providers that were qualified and had experience providing both interpretation services and translation services. We wanted to make sure that all the vendors had a lot of experience working with school district personnel through the lens of communicating with family members in all matters that were related to educational experiences of their children. And we're delighted that the vendors had really extensive list of languages that really did meet the needs and reflect the languages that are actually spoken in our school district. Next slide. So just a little bit of the rationale for the RFP, other than it's been a while since we were looking at services. You can see that during the 22-23 school year, we spent over $100,000 in our translation services and phone services. And one of the things that it's evolved over time is that we were spending more of our time translating special education documents, which we've really appreciated being able to do so that we know that families who are multilingual families are really thinking about complex educational needs, have a very good understanding of the educational program that their children are participating in. You will also see that we currently have 1,140 students who are multilingual students. I think at the beginning of the year, we had less than 1,000 of the students. So we've had about 200 students join our school district this year. And I think it's also important to know that when I came 3 years ago, Spanish was the 5th most common language, and today it is the most common language. And so we want to make sure that we have translation services that not only benefit families, but also have some of the cultural nuances to make sure that families feel really comfortable in the processes as well. So just a quick overview of the process that we went through. Mrs. Early, for the most part, really created the RFP. There's a school district advertised. We received 22 proposals, and then we had a small group of folks who actually reviewed all of the proposals that were submitted. And then we actually had the first round of interviews and then a second round of interviews, and you can see the dates there as well. We tentatively awarded, made that announcement, and we've had an opportunity for the contract to be reviewed to the business office, attorneys, just to make sure that we can really begin on our July 1 start date, which is the program, the first day of our ELD summer program. So it's perfect to kind of have that kind of up and ready as well. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Early to talk a little bit about the committee members and just some of the other logistical considerations of the process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hart. Good evening, everyone. So just a little bit about our committee. We really wanted to be comprehensive and include as many individuals in the school district as we know this particular product touches a lot of different individuals. So, you know, everyone from myself and Dr. Hart to our assistant in our department who reviews all the billing. As you can imagine, with a phone service, you're billed by the minute. So it's just really important that we had all of those details and that lens at the table with us. our ELD department chairs, learning coach. We had members from the special ed department, principals, teachers, individuals from the business office, as well as 2 of our ELD team members who are bilingual. And their help as giving their time to be a part of this committee was really important, because they were really able to take a look at the translations, do some homework for us, and really evaluate them at a higher level in a variety of languages to really help us come to the best informed decision. So the results Dr. Hart shared, we had 22 responses, which seemed to be a lot. The business office let us know that that was a high response, which was a good thing. And we had a rubric that we had to utilize to answer all of them. And through the interview process, we narrowed that down to 7 companies for round 1. They had select questions to answer. And from that process, we moved on to round 2, where we were at with 3 companies, and that's where we got to the nitty-gritty with those translation samples. We wanted to see a sample phone call, a sample redacted IEP document, just so we could get a sense of, the quality of product. And they also had some presentation questions to answer. And one of the things that we really focused in on was just implementation plan, as well as how are you going to support us moving in the future if there are issues, and just answering all of those questions about what our working relationship would look like. Some of the things that we were really looking for, as Dr. Hart shared, the selection of languages offered. We do, as you've seen before, 70 to 80 languages are typically used in our district in a given school year. So that was really important for us. Previous experience working with a school district, particularly that phone service, cultural sensitivity with translation. Sometimes we know that words, if they're translated literally word for word, don't necessarily generate the same meaning as certain sayings don't always translate well. So that was a big component as well. Really important with onboarding. We are a large district in many locations, so just making sure that everyone feels supported, and that those, for the first day of summer program or even the first day of school, where we have students coming and going, just that we're up and running and ready to go to support our families with everything that will be needed in July and August. And just that ongoing support to meet all of our needs. One of the things that I just wanted to point out is we do have phone needs and document needs, but sometimes there are unique needs that come up, like a certain specific document that needs to be long document that needs to be done on a 48-hour timetable, things of that nature. So just, making sure that that's a part of our contract too, to meet all of our needs for the duration of our working relationship with these vendors. And our committee recommendation. So after round 2, we were able to have some critical discussions, and we decided to recommend 2 different contracts. First is with IDEA, Language Services for Written Documents. The quality of their written documents really was at a higher level, and we were very impressed with that. That IDEA also offers a video interpretation service. Sometimes there are unique needs that a video interpretation service can really be benefited from rather than a phone call. Of course, there are certain situations where we have individuals come in and translate. That can't always be done due to, time and things of that nature. So adding that video component just as another option was something we were very much interested in. We will be continuing to work with TransPerfect for the phone call service portion. We felt that that was really what they benefited from, and a lot of our administrators on the call or on the panel that we worked with really felt like in certain situations where a kiddo was missed the bus or just situations that were time sensitive in nature, they really felt comfortable with that service, and that was something that we did not want to lose. All right, so that's really it. That's our recommendation and our process, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
So I guess my main question is from a cost standpoint, we're shifting from using one service to 2 services. Did we change our contract with TransPerfect so it's a lesser amount for TransPerfect and therefore we can do IDEA? Or what will be the difference in doing 2 rather than 1?
So that's a really great question. So for TransPerfect for our phone services, and both of them, we were recommended a 3-year contract. And we got a much lower price for the phone service by going through the RFP process than we were currently utilizing in the 23-24 school year. So we got a lower price on the phone service for TransPerfect, and for the written documents, for IDEA, it was a lower price than we were currently paying. And the way that the written documents work, depending on the length of the document and the language, they have different tiers of languages. So Spanish, which as Dr. Hart shared is now our most common language, that's a tier 1. It's more inexpensive than other languages like Gujarati. So depending on the length of the document and the language, the prices can go up from there. But one of the things that we were able to lock in for both was better prices than we were currently receiving. The video translation service is more costly than the phone. And we are going to, working with Dr. Hart, we're going to put a process in place for administrators to request that service and make sure it's approved by their cabinet level administrator, just because it is a more costly service, but it needs to be, approved and used at their discretion.
Thank you. That answers my question. I mean, obviously cost isn't everything, but it's still, that is part of the reason why you go through the RFP process, to ensure that we are getting the best value, and also getting the services that are required. So I like the idea of adding the video piece for when it's needed. Is there any questions from you, or are there any questions from you, Mr. McBain?
Yes, Dr. G, real quick, and I'm sure this is something that has been taken care of, but I always like to check, especially with the phone conversations. Sometimes these conversations with parents are going to include some personal information about the students, whether it be medical or their educational position, things like that. There's obviously a concern that we keep information private for those students. I imagine these companies have some sort of legal attribution, which keeps their conversations confidential, and students and families are protected. I'm sure it's there. I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's a great question, and it very much is there. And that was one of the criteria when looking for them, ensuring that they worked with school districts and had that as a part of the contract. So great question.
Great, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to move the RFP for translation services forward to action?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We will move that to action as well. Now we move on to our student representative update. Ruka, do you have anything for us?
I guess not. I mean, the school year obviously ended, and I think one of the most major improvements that happened was Night Zone. I've never heard anything negative about it, so to speak. So that was a really good thing that happened this year.
Yes, during one of the students' graduation speeches, he literally said, "Thank you, North Penn, for Night Zone." So I've heard lots of good things from Night Zone from my own children, as well as others, about the positive impact of it. So thank you for that feedback. Yeah, did you find yourself using the time to get some extra sleep, or going in early to get some extra support, or both?
I usually came in early around 7 because my mom does work as an ESL assistant. So I just but the time was good so that I could talk to my friends while also getting homework done, or just getting ahead on certain assignments. So it was really helpful for me too.
Good. However you're using that time, I think it sounds like there was a good use. It was a good use of time. So thank you for that feedback and testimony and update. Are there any additional topics for the meeting, Dr. Waters?
No, we do not have any additional topics tonight.
Do we have anyone for public comment?
Yes, we do. Mr. Lanier, I'm going to unmute.
Before you unmute, let me read I have to read the thing. Sorry. Individuals attending this meeting virtually and intending to speak to the committee should be aware that they are being recorded in order to meet the requirements of Pennsylvania's Sunshine Law. It is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the committee during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the committee raise their hand electronically and state their name and municipality. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to matters being discussed at tonight's meeting or matters that may come before the ACI. To allow time for all those who wish to speak to the committee, the chairperson may ask an individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. Each speaker will have the allotted amount of time, which Ms. Zaborowski, if you would just make sure to start the timer once the speaker begins.
Okay, Mr. Lanier, I'm going to unmute your microphone. Please state your name and municipality.
Jason Lanier, Lansdale. I guess this is sort of tangentially related to some of the stuff we were talking about today, but just in general, I've asked this of Mr. McBain and a couple of the other board members, and since there's a bunch of admin on here as well, the breakdown in discipline that's happened at the schools can't be solely chalked up to one thing, I don't think. And maybe the onboarding of counselors is going to help remedy that. But I'm wondering whether or not policies are part of that problem as well. And this is the question I asked McBain. He kind of laughed it off like it wasn't possibly a rationale for some of the problems. But in terms of this restorative practice where kids just aren't given discipline for acting out and being brought back into school after numerous big problems leads to even bigger problems, which I know I can't name. Otherwise, I know everybody's sworn to secrecy in terms of what they're able to speak about. But in general, this is a problem. And I don't know what the conclusion of the quote unquote independent investigation is going to be, but I want to know, is there anybody going to take responsibility for letting this behavior get so out of line that in one instance it caused a pretty big issue, at least in one instance? Is anybody going to step down from this? And you can all answer. I got a minute and 15 seconds. If you want to each take 10 seconds and answer or not answer, I guess that would be the same, or reply in some way. But this code of silence seems ridiculous. This is serious. This is a serious undertaking. And instead of sweeping under the rug, maybe own up and actually discuss whether or not any of you are going to step down because of these enacted policies. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Dr. G, I think Mr. Lanier is still on, and I'll still call him Mr. Lanier, even though he called me McBain like a Simpsons character. That's fine. Just in reply real quick, Mr. Lanier, you seem to know more about the situation and have become the judge and jury on it yourself. You can hear in the background, you've even upset my dog about that. But, we're going to go through the right channels, and we're going to do this the right way. No one is more hurt over this situation, in many situations involving our students throughout the course of the year that don't go well, more than us and the parents in this community. So I invite you to take part in any kind of process that would make that better, and refrain from publicly making, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgment that would be final without all the facts. That's all. And Dr. G, with that, I move to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn the meeting. I second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the meeting is adjourned. I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.